the first part, of course, with this introduction that we're having now. Then I'm going to talk about nature-based solutions. It's basically a more theoretical background, both for nature-based solutions and living labs. So I'm going to talk about what they are, give some examples, and also in the context of SONATA nature-based solutions. And then Berit will talk about living labs and stakeholder mapping. Again, more theoretical background, what are living labs, how to set up a living lab, and how to do stakeholder mapping. And then finally, we want to spend some time preparing for the physical workshop, a little bit mentally discuss a bit our expectations and our wishes for that physical workshop. So here, just to summarize what we want to do with this workshop. So we want to provide some information, again, more theoretical background, answer some questions specifically about this theoretical background. So we're not going to spend so much time about the concrete, for example, case studies or things like that, because that's going to be in the physical workshop, but more about if you have any questions about theory or practice of, nature-based solutions and living labs. And then again, setting expectations for the physical workshop. So the physical workshop, we would like to work on the concrete, on the case studies themselves, decide what they will be. The first one, we are quite come at least a good way to just define what it will be. The second one is quite open as far as I know. And then we also want to discuss this NBST, so the nature-based solution team in Biosense, and then its possible connection to the Serbian hub. And then, of course, one of the main things we also want to work on is creating a blueprint for the living lab, which is basically should be the specifications for what we want the living lab to look like. And then as part of that, start identifying stakeholders that should be in this living lab. Little kind of a reminder of what work package 3 is. So the main goals of it are to develop this nature-based solution team, to form relationships with stakeholders and transfer knowledge between the teams and within the living lab, and to support nature-based solution researchers across the network. And we're doing this with four tasks. The first one is the nature-based solution stakeholder mapping and living lab, and then training and mobility, the case studies, and then co-creation events. In this workshop, we're going to focus mostly on questions related to task 3.1. And some of the questions that we will be looking at are, in the physical workshop mostly, but of course we're starting here. Which concrete nature-based solutions are we actually going to address within the project? Which case studies will be in the living lab? Who will be part of the living lab? What should it include? And how it will be connected to the work package 1 work. And then again with exploring how to connect possibly to the Serbian hub, or how our hub will look within the project. As related to tasks 3.2 and 3.4, it's mostly focused today on at the physical workshop, how we're going to interact with stakeholders. So we want to spend a lot of time on that as well. Yeah, that was the introduction to both workshops in a higher level. We can also, of course, we want to discuss this at the end as well. So if you have any input to that, especially the physical workshop, that would be very much appreciated. But I'm just going to get started on nature-based solutions now. Again, a more theoretical background. So what are nature-based solutions? That's a question I get quite a lot, and there is a nice definition by the UNEA. And that is, it's a very heavy definition. I'm just going to read it slowly, because it's one of those definitions where every word is important. And that is, they are actions to protect, conserve, restore, sustainably use, and manage natural or modified ecosystems which address social, economic, and environmental challenges effectively and adaptively, while simultaneously providing human well-being, ecosystem services, resilience, and biodiversity benefits. And again, it's a mouthful, and we have this nice infographic to kind of help think. At least it helps me to think about concepts like this quite well, which is it combines, for me, it's three main elements. So it's at the top of the of the circle, you can see the types of actions that are meant. for example, restoration actions, protection of landscapes, or ecosystem-based management, anything like that. And it needs to address a specific societal challenge. And the examples of that are climate change mitigation, adaptation, disaster risk, water management, anything. Yeah, there's many different categorizations. They're all not set in stone, but those are some of the main ones. And then the bottom part, I just want to draw your attention specifically to that. It's not a nature-based solution if it doesn't address biodiversity and human health. So it human health and well-being. So yeah, but again, in essence, it's a nature-based solution is working with nature, for nature and for people. So nature-based solutions have been over the years been more central. A lot of their importance has been highlighted by, for example, the UN, IPBES, and IPCC as a cost-effective way of meeting the Sustainable Development Goals, because they address the societal challenges at the same time as addressing biodiversity crisis and safeguarding human well-being. And it's also important because they address both climate change and biodiversity loss at the same time. Of course, another central part of them is that they look at these societal challenges by using ecosystem elements and the natural processes that are a part of ecosystems. And actually, they are often just it's sort of a branding as well for terms that we are sort of have already been familiar with. So, for example, ecological engineering, restoration, blue green infrastructure, or ecosystem adaptation. And then, so a lot of the time, the question arises: what's the difference? What's the difference between, for example, restoration and a nature-based solution? And sorry. No. Okay, someone's microphone is on. Anyway, so the difference is that in nature-based solution, you work from. Am I echoing? Is someone else echoing? Does everyone have their microphone off? I somehow hear some background noise. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so the difference is that a nature-based solution, it starts from a different place. It starts from a societally defined problem. So you're doing restoration to address a societal problem. You're not doing restoration for the sake of restoration in itself. Okay. So, and I find this figure kind of helpful to think about what nature-based solutions are as well. So on the y-axis, you're seeing the axis is called level of multifunctionality, and this is emphasizing biodiversity, but this multifunctionality is also related to ecological complexity and to ecosystem services in themselves. And then on the x-axis, you have the level of intervention. And that's really just how much you need to do to the ecosystem to do this nature-based solution. But this is also more in the direction of creating novel ecosystems. And I'm just giving an example of green infrastructure, because that's not always clear. It's, for example, something like a green roof in a city. So it's highly constructed. Whereas on the left side, ecosystem-based management, that's more in the direction of protection, landscape protection. And then as you move along, you reduce that level of naturalness, if you want to call it that. And the thing is that also the more you move to the right, you also have less biodiversity, which of course it depends on where you start. I think that's also important to remember. So if you're in a city anyway, the improvement that you make using your nature-based solution, it still might be a nature-based solution because you're improving the situation that was. But I just wanted to flag that this is actually also a thing that is debated within nature-based solution community, that some researchers don't consider green infrastructure nature-based solutions at all, because they argue that the natural elements within it are not, it's not nature. So yeah, just be aware that it's not always a lot like complete agreement in that. And also, there has been a lot of debate about the term itself. Of course, some people are saying that it's just a buzzword. It's at worst it enables greenwashing, and it's easy to cherry pick things, make it sound like you're doing a good thing, but you're actually doing a disservice to something else. And to try and tackle that, of course, we've tried to come up with different ways to help people plan nature-based solutions, to make them to not have them be disservices to other ecosystem services, for example. And one of those kind of helps is the nature-based solution project cycle itself. And this is always very, very useful to think about for me when you're planning an actual project on the ground. So you start off on the top with engaging stakeholders. You identify who is important within your area. And then you assess current issues and root causes, and then you start planning and project design. And only then do you implement. So often, I think especially this beginning part is underestimated, and we have a series of projects that we've from the Nordic Council that particularly Leonard has been a part of, that have found that those, especially this engaging stakeholders and assessing and project planning, is actually one of the most difficult parts, because it takes time and you need to go back, and that's why this is also a cyclical process. You need to keep coming back and reassessing: is your solution addressing the societal problem that you're trying to solve? Are all stakeholders involved? Is the project doing what it was planned to do? And then so to help you assess or make sure that you are doing best practice for your nature-based solution, the IUCN has come up with a global standard. And we need this standard because it aids a common understanding of nature-based solutions, and it can enable us to fast-track development and fast-track policy development and transformative societal change. It helps users of nature-based solutions to have a framework that can help them plan and design nature-based solutions, and to make sure that these solutions actually address societal challenges. It also helps you to assess the outcomes that your project has, just to make sure that the project is effective, scalable, sustainable, and to mainstream nature-based approaches, and then, of course, to prevent negative outcomes or misuse. So yeah, by the way, I've added the link here on the bottom. Obviously, you can't click on it now, but when I share the presentation, you can read more detail about the global standard. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the standard entails. So again, we have this nice infographic here. There's 8 different points that you need to kind of think about. So the first one, of course, I've already mentioned that quite a few times, that it needs to address a societal challenge, one or more, preferably more. And again, always biodiversity and human well-being. It needs to be informed by scale, and by that we mean that the location where you're planning the solution, you also need to think about what is outside of that area. So if you're, for example, restoring a pond, but next to it there's other ponds that are not in good shape, what difference is your pond going to make? Is your restoration action going to change something downstream or upstream of your location? So that's very important as well. Are you going to cause problems in immediate vicinity to your project? That's also something you need to think about. Then the third criteria is that, of course, you need a net gain to biodiversity and ecosystem integrity. And that's, of course, it's easy to think. I think I'm talking to a lot of biologists and ecologists today. But of course, so you know that biodiversity is not just a number. It's also the kinds of species that you have there that are important. So it's not just biodiversity, but also, the concept of biodiversity. And then the fourth criteria, that the nature-based solution is economically viable. That really just means that you make sure that the project just doesn't work for the 3 years, for example, that you have your project period, but it also it won't just collapse when money runs out after the project is kind of complete. Then that you have the fifth criteria focuses on inclusive processes. So this was specifically a criterion as a response to indigenous communities as well. So that argue that this approach doesn't involve them. So this is to ensure inclusiveness. Criterion 6, and equitably balanced trade-offs between achievement of primary goals and the continued provision of multiple benefits. So this again is ensuring that your project lives on through time. 7 is also linked to this, so that you manage adaptively and based on evidence. Just mean that you need to go back and assess that your solution is addressing your societal challenges that you've planned the solution for. And then the last one are sustainable and mainstreamed within appropriate jurisdictional contexts. And then this again is kind of focused on the longevity of the project, on transformative change and making a difference within policy and management. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here because this is very, very detailed. So this is an example. The IUCN has a self-assessment system. You can also click on that when you get the presentation. It's a tool that helps you to it's a sort of a checklist, really. So there's one example here on this slide for criterion 3, the biodiversity criterion, and that's a sub-criterion. So the criterion is in a nature-based solution results in net benefits to biodiversity and ecosystem integrity. And then there's some sub-categories. Is the current state of relevant ecosystems assessed? And then you can see, do you think that you have a strong adherence to this criterion or not? And then your result ends up being something like this. And of course, you want it to be maximal, but here you can see visually which criterion that you need to work on within your project. And this is quite nicely designed. You can also test that out on there, using the link that I have on the previous slide. Now I'm going to move on to examples. So these are just select, there's many examples of sites that collect nature-based solutions, but especially the Upland, the Urban Nature Atlas, those are EU funded as well. Then the NBS Evidence Platform, that's by the University of Oxford, and then I'm shamelessly advertising our site as well, which is the Nordic Solutions one. This is the Nordic Guidance. And all of these pages have case studies in them, where nature-based solutions have been done, and with further reading attached to those. Moving on to concrete examples again, I'm chosen, of course, agricultural landscapes because one of the SONATA case studies is within agricultural landscapes. So you can moving from the top of the list to the bottom of the list. The top is more about the landscape, and the bottom is more about within the agricultural system itself. So for example, you can create wetlands and ponds, ditches, either restore them around your agriculture area or in your agricultural area, be they restored or reconstructed. You can have permanent grasslands or meadows or semi-natural habitats, which again, that's one of the ones that we're going to be using in SONATA. Or for example, hedges or things that are on the boundaries of the fields, or flower strips, again, that's also in the boundary, or within the field, that will be things like intercropping, mulching, or no tillage. Then I've chosen some examples from one of the Nordic projects. There's 4 examples in total. These are just to highlight basically different ideas, things that have been done. So one of them is from Finland, and this one's a project on watershed restoration, and here they're focusing on biodiversity improvement and also carbon storage. So in the to address and mitigate climate change. The biodiversity, they're actually focused on salmon species, so it's also I don't know how much they're focused on other species. Åland, this is also a restoration project. Here they have a few more societal problems that they're addressing water quality, food production, and climate adaptation, and of course biodiversity, which also always needs to be addressed. Then I've chosen this example from Denmark. It is land protection and restoration. But the interesting thing about this for me is that the solution in a way is multifunctional land consolidation. So you basically what this means is that they're talk to different all the different landowners and create a more connected landscape. So to reduce fragmentation within this area. Then, of course, with the ultimate goal of protecting the groundwater. But in the report, you will see that it's this process to come to this area, this well-connected area. It's not always easy to do. So yeah, and they go through some of the difficulties that they had within this project there as well. I found that quite interesting. And then another example, which I didn't think about before a lot at all, was crop wild relatives. So the crop wild relatives are species that are closely related to species that we cultivate now. And they're very important to conserve because because as climate changes and our world changes in general, maybe the crop species that we have aren't as resilient to warmth or to drought or anything like that. So this project focuses on conserving those kinds of species in Iceland. Yeah, okay, so those are some examples. There are many more, so we can definitely you can look up those and ask for more examples if you like. But just kind of a summary. This is not an exhaustive list of what is not a nature-based solutions, but this is one of these are the big ones basically. So nature-based solutions that do not address societal problems, they're not nature-based solutions. Then anything that reduces ecological integrity or reduces biodiversity is not a nature-based solution. Anything that has negative consequences for human well-being or any of the other societal challenges is not. And yeah, so it shouldn't create any disservices to any of the other societal challenges. A note here two notes at the end. The first is that a nature-based solution in one place may not be a nature-based solution in another. And I touched on this before when I said about the blue-green roofs in cities. Of course, a blue-green roof in a city may be a nature-based solution. A blue-green roof in a wetland is not. You don't build a building in a wetland to have a blue-green roof. And I mean, that's maybe obvious, but that's a more obvious example. But there are more subtle examples of that. And so it is very important to think about the context of your solution before you apply it or before you call something a nature-based solution. And then finally, I just want to mention that not all good solutions are nature-based solutions. And I had a recent conference that I went to. I really liked there's someone that said, yeah, but how do we define it? What do you, for example, if you make meat in a petri dish, it's not a nature-based solution. You're addressing food security. You're addressing climate adaptation. But I know, of course not. It's not a nature-based solution, but it's a good solution. So that's just something to remember as well. Now briefly about the case studies in Sonata. So Leonard has already showed this slide at our startup meeting, that the connection from Work Package 3 to Work Package 1, of course, is quite strong, or should be quite strong. And we have so far just worked on the first one, to my knowledge at least. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong after. So this first case study is about pollination within sunflower fields, and here we're using the proximity to semi-natural areas as a proxy for potential restoration. So it's not actually a nature-based solution that we're testing in that sense, but it's this proximity to restored or to natural areas. Will hopefully let us know how potential restoration outside of these sunflower fields would lead to improved pollination services. Here, of course, the societal problems would be food security and improving biodiversity. Possibly also others that we haven't explored. I don't know, human well-being, anything like that. So we're already starting with the field setup. We haven't, as far as I know, done anything on site choice, but this is also very important, and that's something that I don't know if we'll work on that in the physical workshop, but yeah, we need to spend some time thinking about. And of course, how the farmers will be involved within the living lab and the project as a whole. Yeah, case study 2 is open. That's a project that's for discussion at the physical meeting. And this is just a list of some of the links that I already have in the first 2 in the presentation already. And then the other 4 are, and the reason I included this is partly because Leonard has worked and I have worked on these projects, but also because it's kind of a nice logical progression of how to think about nature-based solutions within a region, in this case, the Nordic region. And the first project was synthesizing and mapping the use of nature-based solutions in the Nordics. What are some of the challenges that we face in the Nordics to mainstreaming nature-based solutions? And the second project, summation, that's about the case studies, and some of those are included in the presentation. And then the third one on this list, that's the practical guide. That's the handbook for practical application of nature-based solutions. And the last one is one that's policy-oriented, but also a handbook. Yeah, that is the end of the nature-based solution theory. I think we have 10 minutes for any questions, if anyone has any. And you can, yeah, Lori already, but I wanted to mention we can ask questions directly. Of course, if you don't feel comfortable asking, you can ask in the chat as well, then we can also answer those. But first of all, Lori, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I had 2 questions. One is a shorter one. It was about the watershed restoration in Sweden. And I was just thinking, because you said a nature-based solution has to address biodiversity and also a societal challenge or something for human health. So is it then a little bit more like indirectly because you combat climate change by carbon storage and then also increasing risks for humans, or maybe the recreation that you increase by? Okay.
Yeah. That's also part of the human well-being aspect. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and then the second question was about the IUCN global standard. I was wondering if it's something that is like legally bounded or something, or is it just a guideline to improve your own impacts?
Yeah, it's not legally binding. No.
Okay, thanks.
Would be good. Maya?
Thanks. So maybe more a comment than a question regarding the second case study. If you remember, during the kickoff, we mentioned that there is a project being conducted by the protected area managers in the far north of regarding the wet meadows and restoring those. So basically, we have Tamas here today. He joined a bit later. He's from the managing body of the protected area. And we are like 99% sure that this will be the second case study. And this is where we really want to lean into the living lab concept, because there is a number of interested parties over and working on their project and on that problem. So this is what we really want to emphasize there.
That's wonderful. Then we have a very concrete thing to work on in the physical workshop as well. That's great. Diana?
Yeah, hello. I just wanted to refer to the first case study, just to check. So since we are addressing challenges, climate change, so beside working on pollination service and food production, we can also say that we are promoting adaptation to carbon storage in the soil. So we can also say like carbon storage in the soil is also something that we will work on in a case study 1. Am I right or not? It's just for me to understand.
You're thinking in the semi-natural area outside of the fields?
Yeah, because we would like also to compare that. Somehow it's going to be addressed as well. So would it be correct to say, it's a question for you and also for me to okay, maybe I didn't put it right, but you listed there the societal challenge are pollination and food production. Can we also say carbon storage in the soil as well?
Yeah, that would be an unconnected thing in my head. I think we have to think a bit more about it, but would be, because the thing is we're not actually doing anything, right? So it is a proxy for a nature-based solution. We're not actually doing something. We're not making a change in the system. So we're testing how a natural area will affect pollination services, right? So I don't know how, I mean, we wouldn't be able, I don't know how to connect carbon storage to pollination services, but of course we can say how would potentially restoration of areas close to fields impact carbon storage. That's possible, but the problem I have with that is that if you sample an area that's already it's a semi-natural area, it has been probably semi-natural or a natural area for a long time, you have that carbon storage there from before. But if you're restoring something, presumably in an agricultural landscape, you've worked with the soil over many years, right? And so you've changed the carbon storage potential. So I don't think it's a good proxy to take carbon samples from a natural area versus a restored. I mean, it won't be a good proxy, I think. Maybe think a little bit more about what that means, but for that, I think we would actually need to have restored areas if we want to use restoration as a sort of, as a solution.
I'm just trying to link everything. The idea is, the background idea is to simulate what would happen if we, because we have also this partial pool that is strongly connected to the data that we'll produce in Bird Package 1, and then here we would like to test and somehow I was thinking, like, if we also address soil carbon, at least to have as input to simulate what would happen if would be enlarged semi-natural and natural area coverage in the agricultural settings, and then it would be just hypothetically, can we think about it? Because in that way we can connect all this digital green data with something that could be more concrete. I'm not like, let's discuss it on our meetings, which is also suggested for the WebLE, for the joint, and so on and so on. It was just like, okay, let's ask a question now to see how far I am from the definition of nature-based solution.
I think I understand, but the thing that is also possible, it doesn't have to be restoration either, it can be protection. And I don't know how it is in Serbia, if the protected areas, if they're sort of under a lot of, at least in Norway, that's a problem, that the landscapes are changed. I guess it's a problem everywhere, but the protected areas, how strongly they are protected. Is there a problem that the government or I don't know who is selling off these pieces of protected area? Then of course protecting that area because it is high in carbon storage is also a solution, right? So yeah, that's also a way to look at it. Or protecting for the sake of pollination, instead of saying that it's a proxy restoration, it's a proxy for, well, it is protection. How does protection affect both of those things? That's also perfectly reasonable, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Maria?
Yes, thank you for a nice presentation. I just wonder if it is possible to make like a little bit more simple definition of nature-based solutions for the ordinary people to understand it more, like, concrete. Of course, we should use like the full definition for some scientific papers, but if it's possible to formulate it just in one short sentence, just the very key point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the attempt made in that first definition I showed you. It's very heavy, but I think to make it understandable for people, I think actually it shouldn't be short. It should be more explained what the different components of that sentence mean, because all of them are important. And I think to oversimplify the concept, it risks that you don't get all of the aspects that are important there, the societal challenge, the biodiversity, the human aspects of that definition. Also, if you remember that it also includes that you need to manage these solutions adaptively. That's also a very important part of the solution of nature-based solutions. So I think dropping things or simplifying it is actually quite dangerous. Yeah. Mm. But I think what I think is that learning with people, learning with stakeholders, and doing the project together, I think that's the thing that needs to be done. I think to have people be part of the process and understand why they're doing something and how to do it. And I mean, that's a part of transformative change, right? That people sort of internalize new ways of thinking. And that's what this is about, I think. And I think just reading the definition, even, I mean, the first time I read the definition as well, I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't really know what that means. I don't know what all of those parts mean, right? Because you have to think about each part. What does it mean to manage something adaptively? What does it mean to address a societal challenge? Yeah. Sorry, that's not very helpful.
Thank
you. Tiana?
Shortly, and if you need to say something on our networks, for example, I think that Maria is also related because we need to release a few things now, and it will somehow put some definition that we choose of nature-based. How would you go for it? Because now you said like,
oh, that's the question. Okay, that's the real question. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we have to talk about this more. I don't know what kind of information that you want to put out. Yeah. Or what is it that you're trying to communicate? And
Maria,
then try
please.
to.
Yeah, Maria and Maya would say.
Yeah.
Yes, because we are preparing just the very first blog posts for our math works, and we put like a let me check what we suggested to this publication. But the as I understand now, we should maybe to put this long definition. I'm not sure if it fits into the volume of words, but
I see what you mean. Yeah.
If everything is very crucial, so there is no way to cut this.
Yeah. No, we can definitely talk about the wording of that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that the definition, I gave the definition, it was taken from the Nordic guidance on nature-based solutions. Basically, that's the backbone of it. So it's not too far off. It may be adjusted a little bit, but I didn't make it up myself.
Then it's Tamas.
Hey, hello, greetings everyone. I won't be using camera because we have very low bandwidth. I just wanted to reflect on these problems regarding the ministry or the government. When we are planning these not just nature-based solutions, but management of an area, we always have to think about the ongoing problem with the governmental parcels, or how do I say it? So which are owned by the government. These are being issued at so-called licitations or auctions for a long period of time, starting from 10 to 15 years. And it's a big problem that we don't have in this cadastral data for the protected areas. So it's not put that one parcel is protected or which level of protection it has. And it's very problematic because people, when they are auctioning for these parcels, they don't know about these restrictions or this protection, and we almost constantly having problems with these new owners or people who are using these parcels. Also, that there is some tradition that when some parcel was used, like I don't know, a mono meadow or something like that, they don't don't use it as it is in the color. So if it's a meadow, it should be used as a meadow, but not for, I don't know, vineyards or other kind of usage. So that's an ongoing problem.
Yeah, okay.
So it's very hard. And what is the base of these nature-based solutions? The inclusivity of local communities. It's very important.
Yes,
because they sometimes the only source of information on protection is when we speak with them on some, I don't know, workshops or presentation of the management plans. We have different experience with different municipalities. For example, in Kanija, where we want to implement this idea, which Tiana and Maya spoke about earlier. We have a very good relationship in them, and we constantly getting the data, who and where auctioned for parcels and for how long period of time and such. In other municipalities, like in Subotica, it's a bit less good, but that's the situation.
Yeah. No, I mean it's that's the involvement of stakeholders is really that was the biggest surprise, I think, for a lot of the case studies as well that we in this summation project, that it's very time consuming. It can be very, very difficult. It can be, I mean, that's really the most important success factor of a project is if you have for example, the support of landowners or the understanding of landowners. So it's definitely something that should not be underestimated. I completely agree. Yeah. I think that's actually, we're a little bit over schedule already, not too much, but then we move on to living labs, I think. Berit, are you? I don't see you.
No, but I'm here.
Ready? Yeah, you are here. Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually
perfect.
A very good transition to,
it is, actually,
to the next topic.
Can I interrupt just for one second?
Yeah.
To ask everyone if I can just take you back to last night when I sent an email about the paper with the years.
That's a
Maria
good point. Natural time to do it now.
We can, if anyone hasn't prepared it or anything, we can do it after Berit's presentation. I don't want to take too much time now, but just have it ready. So just have a piece of paper and write the year when you first heard of it.
Yeah, so for those of you that didn't get that email, I guess everyone got it, but just to make sure. So the question is that when was the first time that you heard about nature-based solutions? Not when you understood them. I think that's different. I think nobody does. I don't either, all completely, but when you heard the words for the first time. And then you said paper with preferably big letters and preferably something fluorescent.
Bright colors, but it doesn't
bright
matter.
Colors. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, then it's Berit. Leading on to
Maria?
you.
Maria is still her hand.
Sorry. Yeah, you have a question.
Maria? Do you have any?
Is your hand still up? Or?
No. It's just a little bit logging for a while. So no question.
Okay. Yeah.
I see.
Done.
Okay.
Yeah. Fine. Yeah. Then I'll try to share the next presentation on the living labs. And I wonder whether you can see it properly.
We can see it, but it's in presenter mode.
Yeah. It's strange because it's large screen here.
I guess it's not a problem. We just see the slide number at the bottom, and that's it. I mean, it's big enough, right, for everyone? Yeah.
Still the same?
Yeah. So we just see the presentation, big presentation, and then the number, the slide number at the bottom. But I don't think it's a problem.
Okay, then let's continue like that because it's already here on a full screen. And there's not much more to do for me right now.
No worries.
Then let's use it like that. Yeah. Good morning again, everyone. Thank you for joining today, the workshop. And my name is Berit Köhler. and I'm a social science researcher at NINA, and I'm actually in Trondheim. Tessa is in Bergen, I'm in Trondheim, and I'm excited to introduce you to the concept of living labs and how they can be used for nature-based solutions. And also with the thought to conduct such a living lab in the SONATA project. So this presentation will provide you an overview of living labs, including their history, key characteristics, stakeholder engagement methods, and some real-world examples to give you a little introduction. And by the end, I hope you'll have a little bit better understanding of how such living labs function and why there are or can be valuable tools for both sustainability matters and innovation, and also the implementation of nature-based solutions. So, what are these living labs? So, there are, so to say, a
Sorry
real
for
interruption. I think we're not seeing the right screen.
Yeah, I think
What?
you've moved ahead, right? And we're seeing the cover slide still.
Still?
Yeah.
Strange, because here it's moving forward. Very strange.
Yes, I
you
think
did
we're
try-
seeing your presentation. Because when you see grid view, it's the presentation you already gave us.
Yeah, okay. No, then maybe
It's not
can
sharing.
you
Then it's not.
maybe it's not
actually-
shared. You maybe unshare first and then try again. I don't know. I think we had the same before, right?
Yeah, we
Let's do
tested
it.
shortly, but then, so I'll try to share here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still a.
It's still, if you move ahead, I
Oh,
think
see.
it's my presentation, right? I think it's mine.
So you're unshared?
No, I'm unshared. I'm not sharing anything. No, you. Should I share it? No,
Just a
maybe
second.
that'll be difficult.
Just a second.
Yeah.
Strange.
It's something else now, but not yours. Do you want me
Let's
to
see.
share yours? Is the one on our SharePoint the version that you're
Yeah,
using?
yeah.
Maybe I just share it from mine then.
Try
Yeah.
that. That would
Yeah.
be good. For some reason, it's not doing it.
Do you see it now, everyone?
Yes, we can see, just you need to enlarge, that's all.
Yeah.
Yes,
I can
yes.
also see it.
Yeah, that's
Fine.
me now. Yeah, I will just go ahead for you. Let me know
Yeah,
if I'm not doing it
For one or
right.
the other reason, it just doesn't work from my computer today. But good. Then we have the right presentation and the right slide, as it looks like. So we can say that such living labs are, in a way, a real-world testing ground where people, businesses, and researchers can come together to try out and to improve new ideas or solutions that can, in the best way, benefit everyone involved. And it's like a shared workshop arena, let's say, where everyone's input matters. And the goal is to create something that works in everyday life and not just in theory. And Tessa, can you go forward? Yeah, and then we have here some quotes from people that have actually worked intensively with this concept. And here you get some more ideas. For example, that a living lab is an orchestrator of open innovation processes, focusing on co-creation of innovations in real-world contexts by involving multiple stakeholders with the objective to generate sustainable value for all stakeholders, focusing in particular on the end users. And this is like a collection here of different ideas or ways to describe this concept, let's say, and method. I like also here the last one. For me, a living lab is a creative space where people from many different interests and backgrounds can collaborate in new and imaginative ways. So living labs are also creative spaces for sharing technical skills and technical spaces and for sharing creative skills. This makes living labs very special places. Yeah, so another one is saying the living lab is a place where citizens, artists, technologists, businesses, and public sector organizations can come together to co-create ideas, tools, and technologies that will address local challenges. It's a place for innovation and exploring new possibilities, but where reflection and evaluation are built into the working process to make sure the living lab can be flexible and responsive to the changing needs of stakeholders and communities. And this gives us a little gist about the spectrum of ideas that we are talking about here. Tessa, can you go further? So I would like to tell you a little bit about the history of these living labs to know where they come from, because they have an interesting history, as I think, and they emerged from ideas of user-centered innovation and collaboration. And the foundations were actually in the 1980s and 90s, when the term living lab was inspired by the user-centered innovation approaches that were developed in this time. And it was mainly this researcher William Mitchell at the MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, who explored the integration of technology and human interaction in real-life environments. So his research on urban design and smart environments laid then the groundwork for the living lab concept. He was also really influential on developing the stakeholder mapping principles. So he was active in this arena and has had quite an influence for different communities later on. So in this participatory design movement also contributed by emphasizing the involvement of users in designing solutions. So go on. Yeah, and in the next phase of the history of living labs, this concept began to take shape in Europe, especially in Scandinavian countries, playing a leading role, and they adopted the model for experimenting with technology in real-life settings while involving end users. And then an important step was certainly the establishment of the European network of living labs, who was a result of the EU Lisbon strategy. And this started in 2006. And this European network of living labs aims to make, or this Lisbon strategy in itself aimed to make Europe a global leader in innovation. And this European network should help to formalize the living lab approach and to connect different initiatives across Europe. And early and interesting examples included, for example, this Botnia Living Lab in Sweden, which was focusing on internet technology and user-centered innovation, and Helsinki Living Lab emphasizing participatory urban planning. Tessa? Fine, thank you. So in around 2010, this living lab concept expanded beyond ICT to other domains, including sustainability, mobility, health, and not at least nature-based solutions. The so-called urban living lab model emerged and focused on urban challenges and involved public, private, and community stakeholders to co-create solutions mainly in urban rooms. And then this method was increasingly applied to tackle climate change and to support the transition to sustainable societies. And then the domains widened. And now in the 2020s, we have seen that living labs have become central to the field of nature-based solutions that we are working in, addressing here environmental challenges like biodiversity loss, climate adaptation, and also urban resilience. So a focus on socio-ecological innovation has grown in the meantime. And here the living labs are right at the blink, fostering co-creation among researchers, policymakers, businesses, and communities. So possibly the widest spectrum of actors in society. Also the use of digital tools like the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence has expanded living labs and into the realm of smart cities and connected systems. So you find many examples of living labs also in this domain. And by now, there is a kind of global living lab network, which is inspired and also, in my impression, also mainly facilitated by this European network of living labs. And that tries now to connect projects worldwide, emphasizing here collaboration and knowledge sharing. So we see there is a practical, a very collaborative and inclusive nature in these living labs. So it's about teamwork in a real life setting. That is, living labs focus on solving problems with input from the people who will actually use or will be affected by the solution. And we can think of it as a place where ideas meet reality. So unlike traditional labs, living labs test solutions in real environments, like neighborhoods, parks, or cities, or agricultural fields. So it's actually a working space for trial and error. That is, new technologies, practices, or strategies can be experimented with and adjusted based then on feedback and refined over time. And everyone is here potentially a co-creator. So from locals to governments and businesses, everyone should get a say in shaping the outcomes. Tessa? So you see, living labs are both, in a way, organizations, organizational infrastructures, and also real-life environments that enable or should enable such an open and collaborative innovation. They will bring together citizens, researchers, businesses, and governments to co-create, experiment, and develop new solutions, or should give room for that. So they kind of act as intermediaries, and they would like to facilitate value creation, a rapid prototyping, and also a scaling of innovations across various domains. As I said, and these domains, they can reach from health topics, smart cities, circular economy, culture, energy, mobility, environment. let's go on. I think you can see that common characteristics of all living labs are actually those here. These are the multi-method approaches. So there is no single living lab methodology, actually, but all living labs combine or customize, let's say, different user-centered co-creation methodologies to best fit their specific purpose. Another characteristic is also this multi-stakeholder participation. And even if the focus is on the users, involving all relevant stakeholders is actually of crucial importance and really desired. So this includes often this so-called quadruple helix actor model. We come back to this later when we talk about stakeholder mapping. But it actually means to include representatives of the public and private sector, from academia and the local people and the normal people, let's say, without any official role, the citizens. Yeah. Another characteristic is also that they are take place in a real life setting, as I said, to gain actually a thorough overview of the context as well in their working. And another characteristic is co-creation and user engagement. And these kind of overlap a bit, as you see. So activities are designed as top-down experiments, but benefit from users being involved as factors rather than actors. And there's an increasing recognition that this needs to change this traditional way to do it, that the users are actually only factors and not actors, and that they become equal contributors in this process and co-creators rather than the subjects of the studies. So this living lab approach strives actually for mutually valued outcomes that are then a result of all stakeholders being actively engaged in the process from the very beginning. Okay, let's go on. And then we could look shortly how it's possible to set up such a living lab. What would be the normal steps, the standard steps to do that? This can be interesting for us to set up such a living lab in SONATA, for example. So in the beginning, the objectives and the scope of the specific project should be clearly defined, and a plan of such co-design activities should be done. And then, as a next step, one would think about which stakeholders to involve and to establish a multi-stakeholder partnership, to take contact and to establish such a partnership and engage the community. And then actually one would conduct these co-creation and co-design activities and find the specific solutions and implement these solutions then in real life settings. And if possible, and this should be more and more possible, also monitor and evaluate what has happened in such a living lab. And if possible, this should be continued, this work and the infrastructure that was built up and the organization should be ensured to last longer than the actual project. So in the best case, one could ensure sustainability and also a scalability up to larger areas, if possible. So this is not always really built into the specific projects, but I think it's an important component to keep in mind, actually. Also in terms of connecting different Living Lab initiatives. As we said, in this European network, there's the aim to learn from each other, and then we would like to more and more make sure that these are sustainable Living Lab infrastructures. And this is also something to keep in mind for Sonata, I think. We will discuss that later. But now let's go on to this practically quite important task to find the right or the fitting stakeholders and to do a stakeholder mapping. So this is actually the process of identifying and analyzing individuals and organizations that have a stake in our project or topic. And this would involve understanding their roles, interests, and influences of the different participants or potential participants to foster such an effective collaboration. And it should ensure that the relevant people and organizations are included and that this becomes really relevant in a way. Okay, let's take a look at different or some examples of stakeholder mapping methods. So the first one is one that you encounter now these days very often. That's called the quadruple helix model for diverse participation. And it actually means to emphasize collaboration among the 4 key societal sectors, namely academia, so universities and research institutions, industry, that is business and private sector entities, then government, public authorities and policymakers on the different scales, spatial scales, and actors from civil society, so non-governmental organizations, community groups, or also the general public. And here in this figure, you see kind of what the idea would be, that these 4 sectors would find an arena to intermingle and to collaborate and to exchange their perspectives and ideas. Okay, go on. Fine. And another mapping method happens often across this so-called interest-influence stakeholder matrix. So this is a way to categorize stakeholders based on their level of interest in the project on one hand, and on the other hand, their influence on the project or the project matter. And then we can kind of map the different stakeholders into these different quadrants. For example, stakeholders that we think have high influence on the project or the project matter and also have high interests. So that would be potentially key players to actively engage and to collaborate with. We would also potentially have stakeholders in the lower left quadrant with high influence and low interest. And these might be stakeholders to keep only satisfied and to be informed and to ensure their support. And accordingly, in the quadrant with low influence and high interest in the upper left corner, that might be stakeholders to keep informed and involved as needed. And last but not least, the one quadrant with low influence, low interest stakeholders that we want to monitor and only put in minimal effort, but actually one could also really go for a strategy to try to involve all of these stakeholders potentially and actively, and to increase their interest in the matter by means of such a living lab, right? So, but that's a good way to actually map the stakeholders and where they are in this field of influence and interest. Tessa, go on, please. And another third stakeholder mapping method that I would just shortly like to mention is called the stakeholder journey mapping. And this is a technique to visualize and to understand the experiences and interactions of stakeholders throughout the project's life cycle. And here one could go through these different steps. First of all, to identify stakeholder touchpoints, that is to determine where and how stakeholders interact within the project. And this has to do with the setup of the living lab and the specific activities, right? But that's something to keep in mind. So how would they interact throughout the project? And then one could try to map their experiences. One could chart the stakeholders' journey throughout the process and note and report positive and negative experiences. One could analyze so-called pain points, so identify areas for improvement where it's a bit painful, right? And also opportunities to enhance engagement. And in the end, it would be helpful to develop engagement strategies to create tailored approaches to improve stakeholder experiences and foster collaboration. Also for future attempts to improve such a living lab and to optimize it, because these are rather dynamic structures, right? Infrastructures and processes. There's a video on the web, and you have a link here on how to do such stakeholder journey maps. That could be interesting then to look at if you decide to use it, just as a reference. Okay. It would be probably useful for you to know what are such common living lab methods or activities then. So to get people to sit around the table like the stakeholders you see here in this graph, this illustration, that could be such a participatory design workshop, right? Here as the first activity. So such sessions could bring together all the diverse stakeholders from the quadruple helix sectors, so citizens, researchers, businesses, and also government representatives, to collaboratively generate ideas, to develop concepts, and to design solutions. That would be possible to do, right? So by engaging participants in such hand-on activities, workshops could ensure that these multiple perspectives are considered in the innovation and design processes of nature-based solutions here at this example. Methods or an activity could also be real-life experimentation. So conducting experiments in real-world settings, and to allow the spectrum of stakeholders to actually test and experience innovations in their everyday environments, or in the everyday environments of some of the stakeholders. This approach could provide valuable insights into the usability and also into the impact of solutions, and also facilitate an iterative refinement so an adaptive management process type of process based on actual user interactions. Yeah, and a third type of method or activity would be feedback loops and iterative development. So speaking a bit more generally, continuous feedback mechanisms could be established to gather stakeholder input during various stages of the project. So such an iterative process could allow for ongoing improvements and adaptations, and actually try to ensure that the final outcomes are user-centered and also effective. And as you see here, these different activities could also overlap in a certain degree, in the setup of a living lab. And there are, I think, 2 more that I have listed here. So we could also think of including public consultation activities. So, for example, regular meetings and workshops that are held to gather input and feedback from the respective community. So the local people, where some nature-based solution should be implemented. So such an inclusive approach could ensure that the perspectives and needs of the various stakeholders are considered, and could also foster a sense of ownership and the collaboration of this type of stakeholder group in the process. And last but not least, we could also think about educational initiatives. So programs or activities designed to inform and involve the public in the development and implementation of solutions. So these initiatives could aim to raise awareness and to build capacity as well, and to empower also in that way community members to actively participate in the co-creation process. And I think by integrating these different types of methods, you see that living labs can create dynamic environments and procedures where the different types of stakeholders can actively contribute to such an innovation process and help to find the right solutions that are actually then in the end more sustainable, user-friendly, and widely accepted. So that's the goal and the aim. Tessa, can you go on? I would also show you a few living lab examples from the field of nature-based solutions. And one is actually a rather famous one, referring to the Isar River Restoration Project in Munich in Germany. And you might have heard of it before, but the background here was that this rather large river flows through Munich, the city center, and has historically faced rather harsh ecological degradation due to the urbanization pressures and also hydropower development. And there were 3 main objectives here. On one hand, it was flood risk mitigation, and to enhance the river's capacity to manage floodwaters and to protect urban areas better, to conduct an ecological restoration, that is to improve water quality and to restore the natural habitats to support biodiversity, and also to enhance this room for recreational purposes. So increase the river's recreational value for residents and visitors. And you see here on the picture that this room is really heavily used for recreation. also historically, but then you can imagine that if something changes in this room, it also really has a stake for the recreational users. Yeah, go on, please. So here in this living lab, they managed to involve different governmental agencies, from the Bavarian State Office for Water Management, but also from the City of Munich's Planning Department, and the academic institutions, the Technical University of Munich and the University of Munich. Also a range of non-governmental organizations, like the ISA Alliance and the Münchner Forum, and different other nature conservation groups. And also the local residents and community groups. So they involved citizens actively through public forums and workshops. So you see, they actually involved the whole helix model type of spectrum. Interesting to look at is also what kinds of methods of involvement they used. So here they had these participatory planning discussion rounds to define restoration goals and strategies, where all the different stakeholders were engaged. Working groups, where interdisciplinary teams were formed to address specific aspects of the project, such as ecology, hydrology, and urban planning and recreational use. And public consultations through regular meetings and workshops, where they tried to gather input and feedback from the community. And also you see here they used educational initiatives with programs designed to inform and involve the public in the restoration process. And I think it was a real positive outcome here, and that has been described in several publications, that this collaborative approach, so this living lab approach, actually ensured that diverse perspectives were considered, and that led actually to a successful restoration project that could be conducted, and that balanced both ecological health, flood protection, and the recreational use. Okay, and then let's see only another living lab example. This is also from Germany, but in a different habitat. It's a mountain forest. It's called the Mountain Forest Initiative, also in the south of Germany, which was initiated in 1989 in the Allgäu region to address the degradation of mountain forests on steep slopes, as you see here in the photo, which increased the risks of rockfalls, avalanches, and landslides. And here the objectives were to restore and to stabilize this deteriorating forest and its stands, to enhance their protective functions, but also to mitigate the natural hazards that were threatening the local communities by improving forest health. And they also wanted to promote the long-term forest resilience through such a collaborative management practice. Yeah, and then they managed to really involve actively here the forest owners, the private landowners, and the different forest owner associations, and also a realm of nature conservation groups and environmental organizations, and also the academic institutions with experts in forestry, ecology, and wildlife biology. But you see also the governmental sector was a little bit missing, actually. methods that were used here to involve the different stakeholders included also here participatory planning to identify issues and to develop restoration strategies. And they had regular roundtable discussions to facilitate this collaboration and to come to a consensus building among the diverse groups. They also had here developed educational programs to inform and to involve the public and forest owners in sustainable practices. And they managed to organize a continuous monitoring and evaluation of the forest health and management effectiveness with the help of stakeholder input. So also here, a really positive outcome was described because this initiative fostered then in the end a collaborative approach to forest management and led to an improved forest stability and a reduction in the natural hazard risks. And not at least enhance the community's engagement in such sustainable forestry practices. Yeah. Towards the end, I would just like to show you these 3 phases of a living lab, where you see again this quadruple helix model with the different sectors of stakeholders being involved in the setup phase, in a working phase of a living lab, and also in an outcome and evaluation phase. And if one wants to think beyond the actual project, then also in a dissemination and upscaling and replication phase, as I said in the beginning. These would be additional phases, but would be great to keep these in mind. And you see the desired intermingling of the different stakeholders throughout the different phases of a living lab. Good. Can we go to the conclusions? These are just short, so I think one can see living labs try to provide a framework for collaborative innovation and co-design, and that it builds on the assumption that stakeholder engagement is critical for success. And I think we also would like to say that nature-based solutions can thrive best in real-world experimental settings and in such a stakeholder engagement co-design process. Yeah. Then I would like to give you here a short list of references and also sources for further reading that could be helpful in setting up such a living lab. There's really a compendium of materials on living labs, for example, within this European network of living labs. Here in the top of the list, one can find very much on in terms of different materials, and also this living lab methodology handbook, but also a very interesting course referring to agricultural advisory services that might be specifically interesting here for the SONATA project in this open universities materials. So I don't know whether you know the Open University, but it's really interesting to check also there. There's also one report that looks specifically at stakeholder management in practice, the last one that I listed here. So please take a look. And then I would like to conclude for today. Thank you very much for your attention. And yeah, I'm curious whether you have questions. And let's take these then.
Thanks a lot, Berit. Anyone with question, Maria?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
Yeah.
We don't hear you. You're muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for presentation. I'm just curious how to solve like a language issues in the living lab concept. What is the common practice here?
Can you repeat the question? I was a little bit.
How the multi-language questions is usually solved because so stakeholders are basically talking on the native language, so not so familiar with English, and so how it's commonly solved in the living labs.
I don't know. In these living labs that I presented you, I don't think they had this problem of different languages being spoken. Also not the living labs that I have been working in. They were all in one country, let's say, both in Norway, these ones in Germany. I don't think they needed to tackle this issue of having different languages being spoken. Do you think that would be the case of living lab that you would think of? Would that be the case for Sonata?
I think this is referring to a question we had in earlier that we don't speak Serbian. Yeah. But I think the conclusion there was that that it of course should be in Serbian, and we should somehow maybe get a friendly person to translate important things to us.
Yeah, I missed that.
Is that the question really, or yeah?
Yeah, but they also do speak English now. I mean, the community that was the conclusion last time, I would say. Someone said like it's that the people do not, but then we will also have you and also Maya, so it's going to be solved somehow. I would not, and I believe they do speak English.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's of course, like I understand that maybe people speak English, but probably to a varying degrees. And I think I don't, sorry, like maybe you wanted to say the same, but I think if people are uncomfortable in a second language, it's better to have them be comfortable.
Yes, and also I think in Sonata, I think it should be a local project leadership, it shouldn't be foreigners running such a living lab. But I think this is really not the best option. I think this is not the normal setup. It would be really preferable to have local people with the native language from this local region.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, but we can maybe discuss that specific setup for Sonata later on. In my mind, I thought it's you leading the living labs locally.
Yeah, that's true, and you're totally right, because this is the teaching project. So in the first year, we are informed, in the second, we are involved, and in third, we are engaged. So I believe that Berit and Tessa, with help, with support of others, will fully engage us in the third year, and we will just brief you how it was. But then I still have a question, even though I'm just... Berit, thank you very much for...
Otherwise, we have to work with translations as good as possible and translators.
Yeah.
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 Maya?
I still have a question. But I have a question.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, to sum up what I understood from this living lab introduction, connected it with the experience we have. So this is the framework, and me personally, I'm familiar also with the quadruplex helix and so on. And I would say that our colleagues from Palić Ludaš, for example, are practicing living lab, even not being aware that it's the living lab. On the other part, we are practicing it together every time we interact and plan things, but we were not calling it living lab. But all the activities are based and lean on the current project we have. There is no structure. There is no like this formation, okay, we are living lab and we are addressing this issue across the landscape based on the local questions. We are just like, they are really good in running this public company for the nature conservation. Like I just translate, like we are good here in the science things. We all communicate with the different level of government structures and so on, but I cannot understand still where is the sustainability of this framework. So if we are just, and sometimes we need to cancel something because someone didn't win the call, or we have the other one that is passed and need to focus somewhere else. So basically I still don't understand how to make this sustainable formation. And does if we form this living lab for nature-based solution within the second, for example, first, like for the both case studies, how we will maintain this, and should we apply for some resources, or who support it? Because people need to be somehow connected through some financial mechanisms. So I don't, do you understand what I'm saying? I'm just like not sure how to maintain it, and I would like to. Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, in my view, yeah, there's such a, the concept itself of the living lab helps to get a better understanding of the different initiatives, as you say, that are maybe already running, and some corporations that are already established, and some fora that are already in use, right? That you could build on, and to draw in consciously into this more official, let's say, or structural living lab program or arena. Yeah, it can have different names, but this kind of arena, yeah, let's call it like that. And in my understanding, it's the aim in SONATA to build up at least one such living lab for a case or a topic in Serbia, right? And the funding is within the project, and the mandate to do that.
Yes,
to plan the activities and the partnerships that are potentially within such a living lab. And what is beyond the project, this is definitely another point of discussion, which needs to be taken. And also the additional part of, or challenge of, having different languages here. But do you see what I mean? That I think this it becomes a bit more structured through laying it out, through planning it. It's it's created by going.
Okay, it's great. Okay, so by your experience, in the Nordic countries, the living labs that already exist, who is supporting them? Because if there is no SONATA, we would not make. So this is super nice for us to learn how to organize all it. But basically, what is your experience? Who is maintaining, supporting them? Do they make this formation and then officially apply for some that's all I don't understand. For me, for a long time it was like virtual. It's something virtual but then I realized that if you want to solve some issue, it's so not virtual. It's like during the terms of the project we will have resources to support this, but then what is the practice outside Serbia? Let's say.
Yeah, I think it is really a challenge. It's everywhere a challenge, and then in Norway I don't think it has been successfully solved. The living labs are a relatively new concept and practice, and the ones that I'm aware of, they don't have found a solution for the long time sustainable use. So we have to work more with this issue. I think it has to be governmental funding that needs to be put into this. But this is my personal opinion, and we have to attempt to find financial means to establish such long-term structures to have such living lab initiatives.
I think it maybe is a good discussion point for the physical.
Also through EU projects, for example, more long-term ones. But even they have obviously the problem that they end at some point. So yeah, I don't have the actual final solution yet. But there's something to work on, and it is a problem, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, definitely a discussion topic for the physical workshop as well. I'm very wary of time. We're a little quite behind now. Actually, can we just two brief questions and then we move on to the final part? Maya, yeah, Maya, and then Tamas.
Thank you. A short question. The slide where you had the steps to forming and implementing the Living Lab, interesting to me was that designing co-creation events came before stakeholder mapping. So my question is whether there are different types of events for different types of stakeholders, or do we always engage everyone or in the same way, or how does it work?
Normally it's not engaging everyone every time, but it's in the best way curtailed to the needs and possibilities, let's say. So I think, for example, educational programs are targeting different stakeholder groups than, for example, let's say such roundtable discussions, where you also have you can also only have a few representatives from each group around the table. Otherwise, the table gets too big. So I think it's a bit going forward and backward. It's like an iterative process to design such a living lab. You would like to get a good overview over all the different stakeholders that are potentially in the field in this topic or problem, and then try to design the different activities in regard to knowing them a bit better and what they could be, what could be their potential for collaboration, and also their possibility to reach them, to have them along. To, as I said, you can only have a few representatives of the local public, for example, around a workshop table, but you could always, for example, conduct a survey amongst the local community to gather the more general view, or to reach out in terms of an educational program to more people. You see what I'm saying? So it's not, there's no right or wrong, but I think it's a mix, often a mix of different activities addressing different stakeholders.
Thank you.
But always with the aim actually to include as many as possible, as feasible in an activity. Yeah.
Okay, last question, Tamas.
Okay, I'll just circle back for a bit regarding the language issue. In my experience, it's not a big problem, at least for our company or for our manager, because we have colleagues, many colleagues who spoke different languages, many. So it's not even a problem for some minorities even. So that was never a big issue for us. In some regions, maybe that could be, but I think that with cooperation with different NGOs or some other bodies, it can be reached. Regarding these living labs, I think that is almost, not almost, but a bit similar to that managers should do anyway. To I mean, in what I think. So in communication with the stakeholders, that should be an everyday task. Yeah, and it's similar when we do this thing called association of stakeholders. It's not an obligation, but it's in the law for nature protection. It's only obligatory for national parks, but it's a possibility even for other managers that has similar meetings and communication tasks with the stakeholders. And I think this Living Labs is just an improved version of this already existing task for the managers, but it's a very useful thing. But it's interesting, it depends even on the interest of these groups. For example, we had this new management plan for special nature reserve Ludas Lake. We had this open day to present the plan. And even though we contacted many mayors and interested groups, none of them came to this presentation. That was a bit of a shock for us. And after a month, many of them wrote and called us, oh, well, that plan is maybe not the best. Well, we contacted you, but nobody showed up. So it's a very interesting thing. Of course, it's an experience that we need to communicate constantly with them. So just one letter or a call, or that is not enough with them. So we really need. But the other problem is the capacity of the human resources of every manager. Even though we have 6 protected areas and 2 fishing grounds, together with rangers, we have 8 people, I think. So it's a really big task to do every communication and organizing these meetings. It's a very exhausting thing, but yeah, that's what we have. We try everything. So it's a big issue, but that's all. But it's really important to communicate with them. We have many projects. Every project has this element for communication with the stakeholders, but it's usually just seminars and some workshops, not really on concrete measures or implementation of some tasks.
But it's really interesting what you're saying and what you're reporting then from your experience, because I think it shows really the reality of many groups, that the project managers try to involve people and to do their best, but it's really a capacity challenge, let's say, if not a problem. Yeah. I'm sorry, I need to change the room because it's 12 o'clock. So can I just go and find another room, and I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think we need to move on. Where the meeting is officially closed anyway, but we'll move on to the Mentimeter if that's okay. Can we move all discussions maybe to the physical? I know I'm worried people having to leave.
Last sentence. I think Living Labs are a good opportunity to formalize these efforts and to make them more visible and to show that more funding and more capacity needs to be put into this. That this is not just coming by itself, and that one cannot expect from project managers just to do it in addition to everything else. And it's formalizing things and to put a bit more focus and structure around it. Yeah.
Thanks.
I have to go for the others. I'll be back.
Yep. So I don't know if we want to do has everyone written the year there? Maybe we do that when just prepare that, and I will just share my screen again for the last bit. And this is to get feedback from you mostly. So the physical workshop we've divided sort of into 3 parts, right? The first part is the case studies, the nature-based solution case studies, and then the second part is also focused on nature-based solutions, but for the training and mobility part. And the third is the Living Lab setup. So we've got a little Mentimeter for everyone here. Here's the QR code, but I think it's actually much easier to use the code itself. If you go to mentimeter.com. I shared the wrong thing now. So this. Yeah, you see my screen. So this is you can see if you go to menti.com, and then you can put in the code, or you can scan our QR code. That's up to you. Everyone see that? Oops. Nope, that's not what I want.
Sorry, Tessa, can you put the code in the chat?
Yep, will do. 1 second. Do you, yeah.
They requires the account and Mentimeter, yes.
You need an account for it. To go to, you should be able to.
No, you don't need an account. You just type in the code.
You shouldn't
just type in the code.
Yeah. Don't know why.
Go to mentimeter.com and there's a little field up in the upper part of the screen that says enter the code to join a live Menti or something like that. So just type in the code there.
Yeah? Is everyone okay? Perfect. I see people are in here now as well. I don't know what the order of importance. Should we do the picture first, just in case people need to leave? Because the Menti will be open. Because the Menti will be open anyway. You can you respond to it after if you need to leave now. So if everyone, Maya put instructions in the chat for changing the mirroring on your camera. Is that followable for everybody? Otherwise, I can.
So just to avoid having the numbers mirrored. Yeah. I see that people are ready.
People are ready. Perfect. And I think some of you maybe have cameras that should be on.
No, it's minus.
No, of course. I have my blurring on. That's an error.
Are we ready?
Oh, Tessa, you rule.
Still writing.
Okay. So is someone still writing?
No,
mine is on
how
the
to
back.
change the not to have the mirror? Sorry.
You can also
right.
go to
it's
upper
okay.
right. Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I think most of them are the right way.
It's not blank on the other side, so I cannot turn it over.
How do you do the mirror?
So just look at the chat.
2010.
Okay, 1 second.
Ready?
Because there's 2 screens, I need to do 2.
Okay. All good?
1 second. Okay, all done. Thank you all.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Then, for those of you that can stay a bit, I think we have 12 people in the Menti now. If you figure out how to do it later, that's also fine. So
please do not remove the QR code.
No, it's also on the presentation. It's actually, to be fair, it's only open another 2 days, but I can also email it the code later. So 0 responses. We can start here. Do you have any ideas for potential nature-based solutions for Sonata case studies? And actually, I think we can skip this one because we have a solution for the second one. So then we skip directly to living labs. Should Sonata be the living lab be internal to the project or external, possibly with a life beyond the project? And here you can hopefully vote for this. Let me know if not. I don't know what I can do about that, but there we go. A lot of agreement there. Anyone need more? Yeah, 4 answers, 5. Tamas, do you have a question or do you have your hand up from before? Maybe from before.
That's from before.
Okay, good. Yeah, so then 8 and most people want it to be external and with a life beyond the project. So yeah, definitely discussion topic for the physical meeting. Then the next one is, do you have suggestions for how to involve and communicate with partners and stakeholders in Sonata's case studies? And here we're thinking about the kinds of things that Berit was talking about in her presentation. How you think it might be, yeah, what things might work best, do you think? You can also answer these later, maybe, if it's me some thinking time. And all of these questions are actually things to think about in advance, I think, of the physical workshop as well. So it's not really, these aren't going to be the most important things, I mean, necessarily, maybe. Yeah, focus on communicating benefits they will have from the project, direct communication with landowners, looking for success stories, and allow stakeholders to understand the benefits of nature-based solutions in real life. Joint field trips, participatory workshops, TV and radio. Yeah, good suggestions. And then the next one, voting. We don't need voting. I'm sorry. We don't need to vote. I think I turned that on by mistake. Okay, so the next one, what are your wishes and expectations for the physical workshop? And this, it would be nice if you can specify one if it's related to if it's relevant to specify. If it's relevant to the case studies or the training or the living lab setup. So give examples of specific actions for networking and giving case studies, clear and simple definitions, examples. Practice some actions. What is meant by this? Do you mean in terms of involvement, stakeholder involvement? Maybe. Tutorials and interactive work. Practical solutions for both topics. And identifying which data methods at which scale that the nature-based solution case studies can be demonstrated. Yeah, thanks very much. And no voting again. So, yeah, and then finally, is there anything you wish that we talked about more today? No. We are perfect.
That's good. We talked.
Huh?
We talked very long in any case.
Yeah. Maybe the question should have been different. Should we have talked less today?
Yeah.
The goal is to talk less at the physical workshop. So we hope to have it be very interactive.
Yeah, cost benefit.
Yeah. Cost benefit.
Experiences.
Perfect.
Yeah. Experiences.
Okay.
Others. Yeah.
Obstacles in implementing both, I guess, living labs and nature-based solutions. Yeah. Compromises, difficulties. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, any other feedback or wishes or thoughts, you can email us. And because we were going to be planning this physical workshop now, and yeah, just get in touch with Berit or me or Leonard, or actually also Tiana and Maya, I think, if I can just volunteer you as well, because we will be planning the physical workshop together. Yeah. Thanks very much to everyone for joining. Sorry for running over time. And yeah, hope to see all of you, many of you at the physical workshop in February as well.
Yeah, that will be great.
Thank you for the talk, both of you, and for this introduction.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.